agony booth. He's looking appropriately agonized. And this is one of the scenes where they touched up the effects in the agonizer booth. Like there's more like lights and stuff and more colors, and he's like, ah, it's terrible. So he's being punished. And basically Spock is asking Kirk like, so like what's the deal with this mission? What are you gonna do? And Kirk's like, well, I haven't really decided. And Spock says, we've had some profitable missions together. Like, I've enjoyed serving with you, but like, basically, if you screw this up, they're gonna punish me too, and I'm not a part of that. So, Spock here tells Kirk, kind of to continue our conversation what we were talking about before, he tells Kirk that terror must be maintained. It is only logical. History has shown that. I think that speaks definitely to sort of the Nazi side of it, of like, people were terrified of the Nazi regime. I mean, when the Third Reich showed up in other countries, and they were marching down in force with the tanks, and they were goose stepping, and it was terrifying. I mean, they rolled into entire countries and just took them over. And I think that this is how the Empire works too. They show up, give us the resources we want. Oh, you won't? Okay, we'll just kill you and take what we want. And I mean, how is that not a Nazi narrative? I mean, but it also, there's still plenty of other regimes today who could fit that same story, who unfortunately that same attitude is still prevalent, and or at least exists in our world today in 2020.
Yes, it does.
Gosh. So yeah, we're getting
Let's
like
move on to something lighter.
Yeah, let's move on lighter. Let's talk about let's see here. So now, so we get a quick scene. Scotty and McCoy basically knock out the security guard. They sneak into engineering. They're gonna do their thing, with tapping into the warp core power. Kirk comes into his quarters, and lo and behold, there is a lady sleeping on his bed. And I bet if Kirk had a nickel for every time, he'd have a lot of nickels. So what's interesting is we get a lot of dialogue between her and Kirk, but we do not learn her name until much later into this, which is really annoying to me. But her name is Marlena, which we will not find out until much later into this whole conversation.
Okay, I was thinking, they were like, oh, we've just shot all that, and we wrote this out, and we totally forgot to tell everybody what her name was. Okay, we're going to shoot the next scene where she's asking what's in it for her, and she's going to talk about herself in the third person. Deal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We couldn't wait until the very end when we see the other version of her, and then know that it was the same person, because she wasn't acting all sexy with her stomach hanging out and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, so she's just kind of chilling there. She gets him a drink. She's sort of telling him about her day. She says to him, I heard about the assassination attempt. You're still in trouble with Starfleet. And she's, basically trying to figure out his plan. Like, you want something from these people. They have something that you need. It's going to get you to be an admiral, or are you going to be on the council? And so he's kind of playing along with this. He's like, oh, further than the council, if I play my cards right, kind of a thing. And they're like kind of.
And she's like, a Caesar? And I was like, what?
I know. And she's like, if I'm to be the woman of a Caesar, and I'm just like, oh, come on, honey, please stop.
Like,
why? Why? I mean, like
is that what they call it instead of an emperor for the empire? Like, I was trying to figure out what level it was supposed to be.
I know. So they start getting
once you're a captain, then you're an admiral, then you're automatically the head of the empire. There's nothing in between.
That's right. Nothing in between. You go straight from admiral to supreme leader. Like, that's it. Nothing in between. The
wrong set of stars.
I know. Wrong stars. So they're starting to get a little friendly, a little sexy times here. And then Spock the cockblock calls and he basically says, "Oh, by the way, hope I'm not interrupting sexy time,
Wait.
but
It's a Spock block.
Spock block, Spock cock block, Spock block."
Cock block Spock. I like that.
He calls Kirk and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm supposed to kill you if you don't carry out your orders against the Halkins." And it's
No,
interesting.
wait. He's like, most other people wouldn't tell you this, but I've been informed I'm supposed to kill you. Like, it's not just, hey, I'm supposed to kill you. It's like, nobody else would tell you this, but I'm going to tell you. That was great.
Yeah.
So, he's evil Spock isn't as evil as you thought he was.
He's like only slightly evil Spock. I'm going to say he's like 85% evil Spock. 15% good guy Spock.
I'm going to say 82.7 evil.
Wow. That's so exact.
Pretty specific.
That's like a Data number. Like that would be like something that Data would say. He would be to the decimal point.
Well, I'm wearing a skirt with Bunsen burners and beakers and books that say algebra and physics and chemistry
You're
and
so
stuff
smart.
on them.
Even your clothes are all about
Yes.
science. My God, I'm so jealous.
Yeah. And I've got a big atom on my shirt, but it's only because it's from Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, okay, cool. So then, let's see, what are we talking about? Okay, so then,
Of course, I derailed us into
no, it's
something
okay.
completely different.
It's totally fine. So then, Marlena, who, by the way, I only know her name because I watched ahead. Still haven't said her name yet. She is like, "Oh, Spock's, a good guy. Not everybody would tell you." And then she says, "Should I activate the Tantalus field so you can monitor him?" And then she goes to the wall and she opens up this panel and there's this little machine in there. And this is a really interesting little conversation here, and I think you get a little insight into her personality, even though we don't still know her name. That she's a little passive aggressive here, but she does not really respect Kirk anymore, because she's like, the great Captain Kirk, how many people has he killed with just a touch of a button? 50, 100? And she's definitely not happy with him. She's not happy with her life anymore with him because she doesn't respect him anymore. And I thought this was actually a really interesting insight into her personality here.
Oh yeah, for sure. She was usually, it seemed like she was using men to advance her own career. And once she got to this level, it's like she's become more powerful and more self-actualized in herself, and is realizing that these powerful men aren't really all that powerful. They're just different degrees of sneaky.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And Kirk is very sneaky here because he didn't earn his reputation really by like going out there and like fighting guys in hand-to-hand combat or something. He's in his quarters, safe and sound, pushing a button and killing people from that they don't even see it coming. So it's like you could make the argument like, does that make you less of a man, more of a man? Like, but I think in her eyes it makes him less of a man.
Yes.
And I think it makes her, like you're saying, like, oh, you're not that smart or strong. You're just better at being sneaky. I'll be sneaky too then. And the only thing that they tell us about this device is that it's from an unknown scientist and that Kirk plundered his lab. I mean, that's a nice big open-ended way to be like, we don't know where this machine came from, but we'll try to keep it, mysterious.
It was one of Noonien Soong's ancestors.
Oh my god, you guys, we figured it out. Exactly.
I've just been waiting to say that.
The Tantalus field was developed by Noonien Soong's grandfather.
Yeah.
And that's
Who looked
exactly.
also like Brent Spiner.
Obviously,
Well, of course.
just
Very
like
strong genes.
yeah, just like Brent Spiner, as all of the Soongs look just like Brent Spiner. You heard it here first, folks. Noonien
Even
Soong developed
even
the
the artificial ones. Sorry.
exactly.
I just always have to get in stuff. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, she offers to kill Spock. She kind of toys around with it, like, if I just push this button, no more Spock. And Kirk stops her, and she's just like, oh, you're like serious about you don't want to hurt people now all of a sudden. She kind of doesn't want to, she just kind of doesn't know what to do about it. Uh, and she basically, finally, she says, she wants to know how Marlena will fit into this scheme. So we finally learn her name, Marlena. And he basically says, how does Marlena want to fit into this scheme? Which is a pretty good way to ask, like, I don't really know our relationship that well, but why don't you tell me what you want out of it?
I thought it would be hilarious if she was like, "Ooh, why don't we ask her?"
I'll call her. Oh shoot, what's this girl's name?
She calls for it and it's a cat or something.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That is very fun. That would be hilarious. Let's ask her.
I mean, I can't help but like Mystery Science Theater things sometimes.
Oh no, listen, it's totally allowed. It's completely allowed. As much as I love the original series, believe me when I tell you, I see all the flaws.
Oh yeah.
They're bright as day. I see them all.
And you got to embrace the flaws and love it for what it is.
I agree. Yeah. So she disappears into another room. She's going to slip into something more comfortable, as they say. And Scotty and McCoy tell Kirk now they're on a real deadline because there's all these shifting things, and if they don't do this beam out on a schedule, they'll never get back home. Of course.
Oof.
This is of course. So Kirk says, okay, I'll go to the transporter room in 10 minutes. He has to free up the panel, and then they'll all meet up in sickbay. Spock all this time is basically monitoring the computer's activity. He asks the computer who's doing all of this research. The computer says it's Kirk and Scott, but that it's basically password protected, so he can't get in and see what they're doing. And this whole scene just proves that everybody on this in this universe is apparently very nosy, because Sulu is monitoring what Spock is doing, and Spock can see that Sulu's monitoring him, and
There's no trust in this universe.
oh yeah, definitely no trust. Especially, people are, assassinating each other to move up in rank. Basically, Sulu's like, hey, listen, I can guess what the captain's up to, and I know you have orders to kill him. Why don't we kind of go in on this together? Otherwise, if you don't complete your mission, I'm going to have to kill you, which means I'm the captain. And, Sulu's really trying to threaten Spock here, which is like the dumbest thing you could do. And Spock is like,
no one would know that from your explanation, though.
I know, it's true.
So, because you're like, and then I would have to be the captain, when in reality he was like, then I'd have to kill you and I'd be the captain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely much more sinister than what I'm making it out to be. You're right.
Then I'd be the captain, dude, hey bro, you get it? Let's hug it out, man.
Let's hug it out, bro. And Spock, this is that line we were talking about earlier where Spock is like, some of my operatives are Vulcans. So the idea that, like, I'm not really scared of you, bro, because my Vulcan gang is gonna kill you in revenge. So whatever. So we know that now Sulu is